What's poppin', y'all? I'm thinking, and I think a lot of other people are thinking, that Vlad at this point, he's just punching down on Boosie, and it's gone a little bit too far.
Hey, yo, check this out. Check this out. So a lot of people want to say they franchise players, they put up numbers, they do big stats. Check this out right here. Look at this. Look at this. 10 hours ago, 204,000 views. Tekashi 6ix9ine, clip number 1, part 1. Not even a big clip yet. We're not even talking our yet. But look at that. Look at that. 204,000. About to be a lot more than that. You heard? Peace.
So this is Vlad doing a celebration dance on the amount of views that his 6ix9ine clip is doing. And it's the first 6ix9ine clip. So there's already 2 out there. It's probably going to do 1 million or so. And keep in mind, the title of this one is very important. He says he'll take a pay cut to give Boosie more Vlad TV money. Now, Boosie hasn't, keep in mind, the narrative is that Boosie likely quit because he saw how much 6ix9ine got paid. He never said that Vlad couldn't, or Boosie wanted a raise. He never said Vlad could not interview 6ix9ine, but he probably felt like, yo, this guy made this much money. There's no way. That's not, I need to get a raise. And then that ended up on their falling out, but they said that they would still be friends. And Vlad would say, I support everybody to go check out Boosie's Patreon and this and that, because that's where Boosie is now uploading his interviews on his own, which I've criticized. But keep in mind, Boosie is not my man's. Boosie is not my friend. Boosie is not my family. And really, I didn't dunk on Boosie that much. I just gave some actual feedback to Boosie where he should look towards other people like a Joe Budden and his manager, Ian Schwartzman, and what they did and how they built up their Patreon. But he's not doing that. He's just trying to hustle it out. And the way that Vlad reacted to this, a lot of people will think like he's talking about Aries Spears, but if he was talking about Aries Spears, I think he should make the distinction and specifically say, yo, Aries, you said you're a franchise player, because he made it vague. He was just saying, oh, people say they franchise players. Well, who are the people that say they're franchise players or regard themselves like that? Boosie, we would all say that, but Aries was also saying that. He's like, yo, me, Boosie, Godfrey, Lord Jamar, who Godfrey's still killing it, doing his own thing. And I have a lot of respect for him to stand on his principles like that. Meanwhile, everybody came crawling back to Vlad, and he even had a separation with Lord Jamar because of that. But if he doesn't specifically say Aries, then we will think that he's talking about Boosie too, especially when Boosie is being discussed in the interview. And this is the thing where I find it like slick shots, because Vlad said that he went off on Aries Spears because Aries Spears made some slick comments like, oh, you're trying to get all up in the pictures. And he's like, yo, I didn't like that. Well, you don't think Boosie's not going to like you letting 6ix9ine clown him? And this is the thing. Vlad will create this scenario for Boosie to get clowned and to be made the butt of the joke when he's just going to sit back and say, I'm not saying that. Yeah, I'm not saying that. It's like when 6ix9ine was at one point talking about how, like, Mexicans are working on Boosie's property, and property in Atlanta is so cheap, and Boosie's just catching the same fish, and then Vlad says, yeah, Boosie does have a lot of Mexicans working on his property. He's just letting 6ix9ine, he's bringing on a guest to rail on Boosie, so that if Boosie ever says anything, he's like, yo, listen, that was 6ix9ine saying that. That's not me saying that. And that's just disrespectful, especially if that's still your friend. Keep in mind, he says, yo, me and Aries Spears, we're not friends, but me and Boosie, yeah, we're friends. We've got a long-standing business relationship and friendship. And Boosie even said, yo, that's my friend too. And Boosie would come out publicly to say, like, yo, me and Vlad are cool. I don't got a problem with cool. When people were ready to take aim at Vlad, because when Boosie first left, people were ready to do that. And he was like, nah, listen, it's just business stuff. We're still cool. So for Vlad to behave like this, it's not just me that's noticing this, because even Vlad's mans, or both of his mans, Vlad and 6ix9ine, academics would be critical about Vlad when it comes to this.
I'm just like cautioning Vlad a bit, because Boosie, you got to treat somebody like a friend. Like, I feel like, I completely understood Vlad saying, I only spoke on this Boosie thing because Boosie spoke on it first. He didn't tell the full story, so I told the full story. Okay, cool. Boosie's now done his own interview, this and third. But unless I'm mistaken, Boosie's not consistently online, like, kind of like, Vlad, I'm sticking it to you. And it's kind of starting to feel like that now with Vlad and Boosie. And I think that this is how you start to make it where you guys never become friends again, right? Where it could get to a point where, like, Boosie might feel like you're trying to just shit on him, right? You're trying to shit on him with these other guys or these other people. And especially, I thought the original incident or the original transgression came from Boosie probably thinking that, hey, him and 6ix9ine aren't the same type of person. So when you do an interview with 6ix9ine speaking about him, I could see Boosie not being that happy. But again, this is only if Vlad cares about the relationship and salvaging it. I feel like it's going down a path where Boosie's gonna come out soon and say, "Fuck you, Vlad." And I think they've both kept it nice, but it's a little bit over. There's some passiveness there going.
Academics here has no stake in Boosie. He's not cool with Boosie. He's cool with both of these guys, and he's even recognizing this. And I fully agree with him here. And on top of that, we also got to take into consideration that there was a long period of time where Vlad said he would never, under any circumstance, interview 6ix9ine. And nobody talks about that. I even asked Vlad on X because I'm genuinely curious what caused him to change his mind. When he said, I'm interviewing 6ix9ine, I replied under it on X, however long ago it was, and I said, what made you change your mind? And that's not me trying to create a gotcha moment. I'm genuinely curious because you were adamant, and there was no new information that was revealed about 6ix9ine that we hadn't known in the past year from the past 6 to 7 prior about 6ix9ine in his case. And he made it seem like he was taking a moral stance on 6ix9ine, Vlad that is, and then he brings him on and he's paying him a huge amount. What, because of the views? We just never got an explanation for that. And I'm not saying Vlad has to give an explanation, but when you're a Boosie, that's your man's. He says that he would never interview this guy, and that aligns with your values because Boosie does not like 6ix9ine, does not like rats or whatever, but Vlad has had people that have told to the federal government, mafia and all that, and Boosie doesn't have a problem with them because he understands that it's a business. So when you bring him on and then you pay him more than Boosie, that already creates one feeling. But then there's another guy, which is Charleston White. So Charleston White was put into contact with Vlad. Vlad says he's talking to Charleston White to potentially interview him. And that's also another individual that Vlad refused to interview. And he says that he refused to interview Charleston White because of his relationship with Boosie, because Charleston White talked crazy about Boosie's kids, and Charleston White's talked like really, really disrespectful. And he said, nah, I'm not going to do that. But now you're supposedly going to have Charleston White on there to get interviewed. And will the Boosie conversation come up? I feel like it's 100% going to come up because Vlad's trying to create a huge moment with Charleston White. He's paying him a bag. It's going to be his first appearance on there, so Boosie needs to get mentioned. And what is Charleston White going to do? He's going to clown Boosie, and Vlad's going to sit back, and he's just going to allow it to happen. And if it's your friend, like I said, then you would never interview Charleston White regardless of what business happens between you and the friend. Like, you and the friend could fall out business-wise, but that's still your friend. Boosie has made it clear that he is very cordial with Vlad. He didn't wave like, Vlad's just taking advantage of me, this and that. He did say like, it was only over $5,000. And, Vlad showed the numbers and we understood the numbers, but we're going past numbers here. This has nothing to do with numbers. This has you talking about kind of Boosie's financial situation in one interview clip where he was saying, Boosie doesn't invest in stocks. He just spends a lot of money. And that's like, you're kind of harming his public perception in that way. And you're not being delicate with, and that's just one instance. But when you have Vlad on 6ix9ine and 6ix9ine's just clowning him, if that's your friend, you're like, yo, we're not doing this. Like, you know, you can make your comments, but that's going a little bit too far. But he's not going to do that because he knows it's going to make more money to just let them. And that's what people want to see. That's what I want to see. I want to see Charleston White get on there and talk about Boosie. But Vlad should not allow that to happen if Boosie is his genuine, real friend. Boosie mentioned him once. Like we said, it was the back and forth, and that was that. Boosie kept it pushing. He dropped the second interview that had nothing to do with Vlad. No response to Vlad. Yeah, it fell on deaf ears because it was behind a paywall and the initial hype of the back and forth between him and Vlad happened. But that was that. So if Boosie ever falls out with Vlad again and says something again, it's 100% agitated by Vlad. And I think the Charleston White one is probably the grimiest. Yeah, Charleston White's going to do numbers, but like I said, I really wonder why he did the 6ix9ine interview. I really question that. What made him change his mind? And it couldn't have just been money. Or maybe it was. I don't know. But Vlad has enough money. Like we said, he could have made a ton of money doing it with 6ix9ine in the first place, but he chose not to. But maybe the business relationships were more valuable to him back then other than 6ix9ine, and now the relationship with 6ix9ine is more valuable. But granted, that is very, very entertaining, the one with 6ix9ine, because he does an interview with 6ix9ine. 6ix9ine's got his own studio that he invested in, so Vlad is showing up to do it at 6ix9ine's spot. But he's got a whole studio. He's got a gigantic screen. 6ix9ine is almost interviewing himself. And he does interviews where he's interviewing Vlad too. And he understands content at a different level. And when he shows the numbers, 6ix9ine talks about going from 50K to 15K. Yeah, it assists Vlad in his narrative, which is a valid narrative, which is like, yo, the numbers don't make sense. You got to understand the numbers making sense. But I'm looking at this more from a friendship aspect, which he claimed that he was friends with Boosie. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. Do you think Vlad is actually friends with Boosie and this is all just, you know, he's just doing his job? Or do you think that he's trying to make Boosie the butt of the joke, potentially get him a much lower rate and get him back on there? As that would be a humiliation ritual if he gets a lower rate and then he states what that lower rate was, or that he got a lower rate at all. It would not look good for Boosie. And Boosie is, justifiably so, a prideful guy. Now, I will say, though, that in the interview with Adam 22, he did defend Boosie when Adam was saying, like, yo, Boosie can't be making that much money.
Like, you know, to make 100K from doing club dates or for doing features, that's quite a good amount of work.
Well, I guess because people are like saying he fumbled the bag and so forth, which I don't agree with. He's been putting out videos saying, hey, man, I make 100K every weekend doing shows. And I don't doubt it, because at no point do I feel like Boosie is dependent on Vlad TV to pay his bills.
For the record, I really doubt that he's doing that every weekend.
Yeah, I don't know.
Where?
Well, he's pretty big in the South, man. And there's a lot of like...
But every weekend?
Well, think about it. He's a big entity in the South. Yeah. Like, I'm not here to discredit Boosie on any level, right? I have a lot of respect for Boosie. And, you know, think about how many states that you and I have never gone to, right? With cities that you and I will never
He's been building up his network for 20
that's what I'm
years.
Saying. He's had this network of clubs, and look, you don't need to do an arena. There's plenty of venues that hold 500 people, maybe 1,000 people in like Missouri and Alabama and Mississippi that I will never ever even know about, that probably has been booking Boosie consistently year after year and pulling a crowd, and he does his thing. And it's, you know, because it's largely ignored by people like Chris Brown when they go on tour or
This is clearly a disconnect, not a cultural disconnect, but a regional disconnect between Adam and what goes on in the South, because I have personal friends from Mississippi that were telling me, yo, when Boosie would show up to these cities in the South, he would get booked for a show would go crazy, booking for a club. You would get a big bag off of that. And then every street distributor person that's maybe trying to rap, a person that's trying to finance a rapper, they're buying features. So Boosie could do, you know, I think at the time he was doing maybe 15K features. So he would do 5 to 6 features or 5 to 8 features a night in these cities and then walk out. And that's just do the math on that. Yeah, that's $100K for an occasion. And that was years ago, but the numbers have probably dropped for the feature, but it's still like that. And another example of that is 2015 Kevin Gates. Like before Two Phones and really, really blew up like that, Kevin Gates shocked people when Isla, the album, sold 100K first week. But in the South, Kevin Gates was being played by everybody. We're talking like white boys in huge pickup trucks. We're talking black people. Everybody was playing Kevin Gates. And he was far bigger in that region than he was in the bi-coastal, whether that's East Coast, West Coast. And yeah, I know part of the South is on the East Coast, but you get what I'm saying. So there is a lot of clout and money to be made in just being a regional artist or a regional legend in this case, which is what Boosie is. But yeah, I just had to add that last part to be fully fair with Vlad and saying like, yo, this Boosie is not broke. He's not destitute. He is definitely not struggling for Vlad TV money, and, give a little bit of a counterbalance to what I had been saying earlier. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed. And I'm going to see y'all on the next one.